What is up, Team Beyond the Weekend? Everybody watching this video, and if you clicked on the thumbnail, then you're probably looking for an opinion of vegan eating by a bodybuilder. That's my certification right there. Now this video is going to offer some very unique insight and perspective into a transitional bodybuilding vegan. Now I haven't always been eating vegan my whole life. Been eating meat since I was born, and in the last 3 to 4 months I've switched over to vegan. In June I started transitioning by doing a day, maybe 2 days a week, and then at the end of June I went full bore 100% vegan, and I just wanted to see what the effects would be. And the reason I started vegan eating, to be completely honest with you, was literally for my acne issues. I used to have such bad acne. I took Accutane for a really long time. It cleared me almost all the way up, and then at the end of the Accutane treatment I was getting nervous about whether or not I could keep my acne at bay, so I switched over to a vegan, well, I did a bunch of experimenting, but then I decided after all the experimenting to switch over to vegan eating to see if it would keep my acne away, and it has. But regardless of my reasoning, the outcome is the same. I've been eating 100% vegan for all this time, and I think it's very interesting because people say that you won't feel the effects, you won't feel the results and the improvements of vegan eating until you've done it for multiple months at a time. So this video is going to stand as my 3-month review as a bodybuilder turned vegan. Alright, enough background information, let's cut to the chase. The first 3 questions are going to be very common questions I get all throughout the videos. Every single time I put up a vegan bodybuilding day of bulking, I get these questions. So I'm going to answer those questions first, and then I'm going to address the pros and the cons of vegan eating. The first question that I always get is, has it been harder to make gains? Has it affected your gains? Has it been harder to add weight? Everyone knows, well, not everybody knows, but a lot of people know that I'm bulking right now. I'm trying to put on weight. Roughly about a pound a week is what I aim for that, and sometimes it's half pound, sometimes it's 2 pounds. It doesn't really matter that much. But has it been harder for me since switching to a vegan diet? No. Simply no. For me, it's relatively easy because what I do is I get into routines, and routines are very easy for me to follow. So what I'll do is I'll find certain meals that fulfill a large amount of protein or whatever it is that I'm having a hard time eating, and I'll just keep eating those. So what I'll do is, like, I'll do that Chipotle, the homemade Chipotle meal you guys see a lot. I'll do the homemade stir fry a lot. I'll do the bean dia a lot. And I just repeat these meals over and over. So really for me, it's not necessarily hard because what I do is, instead of just having chicken and potatoes for a meal, instead of that, that's just now not a staple meal, and in place of it is now a bean dia or oats with brown protein or brown rice protein or something. See what I'm saying? It's just routine meals that you're just moving the old ones out and you're moving the new ones in, and for me it hasn't been hard at all. I've just been eating the same amount of food, just different types. In terms of adding weight and putting on actual size, I was actually a bit nervous about this too because, you know, the protein and I don't know, just in general, it doesn't seem that it would make sense for you to eat plants and beans and things like that and then it turns into like hard solid muscle. It just doesn't translate at first. I understand that, but I have had literally no problems at all with my gains. In terms of adding weight every week, I've been adding weight. I'm at 215 pounds right now, and that means I've been doing, you know, half a pound and maybe a little bit more per week, and that hasn't changed since I switched over roughly about 3 to 4 months ago. I was putting on about half a pound to a pound back then, and I'm still putting on half a pound to a pound now. In terms of strength, have I been able to increase my strength continually? Yes, but I will say that I personally am not someone who makes these huge leaps and bounds in strength. Whether or not I'm in vegan dieting or normal dieting, whatever it is, I don't go from a 225 bench to a 4-plate bench during bulk. It just doesn't happen like that. It's a harder struggle for me. I think this has to do with the fact that my limbs are so long that it becomes difficult for me to make these huge progressions when my range of motion is so much larger than, you know, someone who might be shorter than me. The next most commonly asked question, and this is by far one of the most asked questions in the comments, is, has it been hard for you to get your daily protein requirements? And also, what are your daily protein minimums? I'm personally taking in about 140 grams of protein per day. Gasp. I know. When I first heard someone else say that, I was just like, no, like, you can't do that. You just can't. You gotta have more. Back in the day when I first started, I used to think you needed 2 grams of protein per pound you weighed. Not even lean body mass. It's just like, if you weigh 300 pounds, you need 600 grams of protein. And I was hella wrong. So wrong. That is not the truth. It's not. It's just not. You don't need that much. You can't even. It's not possible, right? And then I went down and I got more reasonable. And then I was thinking about a gram of protein per pound you weigh. But even then, I don't need 215 grams of protein. I know it feels right. Like, If you eat a multivitamin at night, it feels good because you know that you got vitamins in if you didn't get the right amount of vegetables or whatever, if you didn't get the right amount of micronutrients through your food. And I can understand the same idea with protein because I did the same thing. I was like, hey man, maybe if I need 175 grams of protein and I eat 250, at least I know that I've got the optimal amount of protein in plus some just to cover. It's like insurance. I understand that thought process for sure, but by using your calories in macros that you don't need those calories, you're not gonna feel as good. I'm telling you, if you use your calories wisely and you have just the right amount of protein, and then you can use more of your calories towards carbs instead of, you know, partitioning them over to protein, the carbs are gonna help you have so energy throughout the day. Your workout's gonna be more on point, your mind's gonna be more on point, your pump's gonna be more on point, and your gain's gonna be more on point. So like I said, I'm now eating about 140 grams of protein. I know that's crazy. How did I get to this number? Well, I continuously just came down, and I was eating about 210 grams of protein probably about 9 months ago, maybe a year ago. And as I've gone lower and lower, I've realized that my strength is still here, my size is still here, and my progression is still being made, which to me, in my deductions, means that I don't need as much protein because my goals are still being reached at the same level. I'm still moving down this path at the same speed, even though I'm getting less protein in, which is actually an awesome thing because I don't have to stress so much about getting protein. I don't have to go to bed and be like, oh no, I'm still eating 80 more grams of protein when I'm already way up there. And if you're wondering to yourself right now, how the hell do you get protein in on a vegan diet? I totally understand that as well. It is very difficult at first, but if you have a lot of vegetables, man, I'll get like 40 grams of protein per day in from my vegetable intake. That's broccoli, green beans, all those dark vegetables. They have a lot of protein actually. Another thing you can do is beans, man. Beans are so good for you. And you know what makes you fart? It's that juice. So make sure you wash your beans out before you eat them, and then you'll never have to worry about the farting thing, but you'll have plenty of protein. A whole 3.5 servings of black beans, a can essentially, is like 30 grams of protein in the first place. A tortilla is another 8 grams. You know, you just add these things up as you're making meals and you'll get protein. Oatmeal has, even just in plain oats, just rolled steel oats has protein, and then you can throw brown rice protein in, or you can throw in whatever you need to, and you can add up these proteins. It really kind of just forces you to think more about what you're putting into your body. But there are so many ways to get protein in on a vegan diet. I can show you some myself. I have meals and recipes on my channel, so you can look through those if you'd like. There are also very, very many vegan bodybuilders and fitness enthusiasts throughout the YouTubes and throughout the internet. For example, one that I think is a fantastic vegan bodybuilder is John Venus, Jon Venus, and he has tons of recipes in terms of high protein bodybuilding meals for vegans. So if you guys are interested, go check that out. Now to the next question. Now the last big topic of concern when it comes to vegan eating is a lot of people focus around soybeans, soy protein. There's lots of soy products. When it comes to alternative products of regular meat products, it's usually made from soybeans. So I'm saying, like, if you want some like meatless meatballs, or you want some meatless meat patties, it's usually made of soybeans and then like all this other stuff, like all this crazy stuff they make into it, and then it actually tastes pretty good. Now people are asking me, what's up with that stuff? Can you eat soy protein? Is that okay? I've heard that it causes puffy nipples. I've heard that it increases your estrogen through your body. I've heard all these crazy horror stories. And I totally understand those. I used to think those too. I used to think, man, soy is so bad for you. It'll just make you into a woman immediately. You'll go to bed after eating soy, you wake up, and you'll be like, oh, I guess my name's Janine. I'm not Brian anymore. I got it. But trust me, soy protein is okay in small amounts. And what I mean by that is, I personally, and this is just my own mind, my own anecdotal decision, this isn't because of any studies or anything like that, but I personally try to keep my soy protein intake under, I'd say roughly 35 grams per day. So 35 grams of protein from soy sources like soybeans or alternative meats or Cliff Bars. Those have soy in them as well. And the reason of that is because there are studies that show that soy has been able to increase your estrogen in your body. Now I think this has to do with overdosing on soy, like having a ton of soy. Just like if you're going to talk bad about, like, I don't know, saturated fats. If someone had only saturated fats for the entire day for a month, it's gonna make them just a piss person. They're gonna be an absolute piss. But if you're having just a little bit of saturated fat per day for a month, nothing's gonna change. The same thing, in my opinion, with soy protein. I've never had any issue eating it. I try to eat 1 Cliff Bar and then 1 serving of meatless meat. Or I'll have no Cliff Bar and then I'll have 2 to 3 servings of meatless meat. But I'm always trying to keep under 35 grams, and that has served me so well. And all those meatless meat products are freaking delicious. My current favorite thing to do right now is just make traditional Italian pasta with red sauce and then like 4 to 6 meatless meatballs. And it's like, oh, look at the pepper, it's so good. Okay, we've been talking for a long time. I don't want to lose your attention, so let's go through the pros and cons before we wrap this video up. Here are the pros when it comes to vegan eating as a fitness enthusiast. One is it forces you to eat more vegetables. Now, I guess if you're a terrible person and you switch to vegan and then you're just eating candy and stuff and sugar and you're just like, oh, I'm just making sure I don't eat the dairy and whatnot, then yeah, you could still eat terribly on a vegan diet and you will still feel terrible because you're eating tons of sugars and fats. But if you're being good about your vegan diet and you're really trying to approach it in a healthy way, in a smart way, you're going to just naturally be forced to eat more vegetables. It's going to give you more volume, it's going to give you more protein, it's going to give you some more variety, it's going to give you some interest to what you're making. But the pro of eating more vegetables is everything. It's literally everything. I think more so than not eating meat, eating more vegetables is just like the lifeblood of happiness. When I started overdosing, essentially is what I like to like jokingly call it, on vegetables, I started seeing these massive improvements in my face. And what I mean by overdosing was probably around 10 to 15 servings of vegetables a day, if not more. And this was coming from my big veggie stir fry that I was making for a long time. You guys can look the recipe up on my channel if you'd like. But I was getting a lot of vegetables in from that meal, and then I would add a couple extra servings of vegetables per meal I was eating every day, so I was getting this huge amount of vegetables. My point being, when I was eating those vegetables, I would wake up, boom, feel amazing. My workouts on point, boom. My clarity, very fast. But most importantly, especially to me, my skin, so much clearer. And it still is so much clearer. I'm not getting the overdose crazy amount. Like I'm not getting 15. I can't do 15 every day. I try to some days. I'll do a high vegetable day, but I'm not able to do that every day. Right now I'm roughly getting I'd say about 7 to 10 servings of vegetables. So still very good, but not quite as overdosey. But what it's done is caused my face to get so much clearer. Can you see my face? Like, I'm not trying to brag in the slightest. If you know me, you know I am so humble. I'm so humble about my acne, about my journey, about my adversities. And the reason I'm showing you my face and telling you like it looks so good to me is because it was so bad. And so it's such a huge flip, it's such a huge switch. And to me, it's amazing. For anybody who's experiencing extreme acne right now, or really any sort of like, I guess, skin problem, skin issue, you might want to just experiment and try the vegan diet or just eating more vegetables. It may be what you need, because for me, it definitely was. All right, let's rack through the other pros real quick. Energy, it's up through the roof. When you eat a lot of those vegetables, like I was saying, it gets you up and pumped, as well as having, I guess, more carbs is kind of generally what people end up doing, just because it's harder to not get more carbs. You don't necessarily have to do the 90-10, 80-10-10, like high carb, low fat thing, where you're just eating all carbs. But likely you'll get a little bit more carbs, and oftentimes a lot of people are missing out on carbs, and the clean sources of carbs, you know, not like sugar and chips and all that crap, but like brown rice, black beans, these whole foods, they are great for energy, and for me it's caused a great fuel for my gym trips. Water retention, that's a huge one for me. You guys know about my moon face. Right now I'm not holding too much of a moon face, but when I'm bulking, when I'm adding weight, traditionally I get a huge moon face, and I think this has to do a lot with preservatives, salt, sugar. I think those are the things that cause water retention heavily with me. And so if I was having some sugary foods or I was having some salty stuff, you know, at night, it would reflect in the next day by me holding lots of water. By eating vegan, it's forced me to eat, even when I'm eating kind of dirtier foods like sugary stuff like Cliff Bars or something, it's forced me to eat foods that have, I guess, a bit better of a macronutrient profile. So I've been able to retain less water while still eating a surplus in calories, which to me is freaking fantastic. Another pro is that it increases your creativity, which is kind of a small one, but it's cool because you're gonna have to cook a little bit more. You're gonna be forced to cook more. You aren't gonna be able to be like, oh, I'm going home, just pick up some Jack in the Box. You can actually go home and cook real quick, and the idea of cooking should become easier to you. So you should enjoy cooking more because you're doing it so often that you can make it happen quickly. But also creativity will come to mind. You'll see what works with what. You'll be like, okay, mushrooms works great as kind of like a thickness thing, like a meaty thing inside of my dishes. So I'll use mushrooms anytime I want some kind of like bite, some actual texture of meat in there, or whatever the idea is. But you'll see how foods work together, and just naturally without even going to a culinary school, you'll be a lot better at cooking, and your girlfriend slash boyfriend will absolutely love you for it. And one of the last pros, and there are so many more, of course, there's so many pros and cons, but I have to keep this short for you guys, is acne, and it's improved so much for me. You guys have heard this already. I've told you about it a bunch, so I'm not gonna harp on it too much, but my face has been so much more clear. The only thing I'm really battling now is just very small amounts of blackheads, scars, and the occasional pimple or two. So like I have one small one pop up here, but it's still amazing because the acne that I am getting now are these very small whiteheads, these very normal people whiteheads, versus what I used to get, which was like these cystic marbles, these like planets that would orbit around the face of space. It was terrible. It was really bad, but now it's been so much better, and it has a lot to do with me having more vegetables, me switching to vegan, and just me generally getting done with Accutane. Now before we wrap this video up, let's run through the cons real quick. The number one con is that it's going to be hard to eat out on the fly, and this is something that we all love to do. Whether or not you think that you do this very often, it is very convenient to be able to be driving around. Maybe you're in between gym and the work, and you need to get food before you go to work, but you don't have time to go cook, and you're like, oh, I'll just run to Chipotle real quick. Boom, I have some food. And that was a bad example because there is vegan eating at Chipotle. But my point is like, oh, I'll drive through Jack in the Box. I'll drive through McDonald's. I'll drive through Taco Bell. I'll drive through, you know how many ones you can name off right now? You could list them all, White Castle, Wendy's. There's so many places you can go, and you can immediately get a burger, you can get a burrito, you can get a taco, you can get anything you want, a falafel, a gyros, a gyro. You can get anything you want. And it's immediate. All it takes is $5 to $15. But when you're vegan, you have to be very aware of who serves vegan eating, vegan meals and stuff, and it's not necessarily going to be that available, especially if you're not in a more, I guess, new age state like California, maybe Florida, New York, Texas. Places like that are gonna have the new experimental restaurants and whatnot, not like that, but places like Iowa or something probably aren't gonna have like a ton of like, this is a vegan only restaurant. Like that's not gonna happen. So it's very hard for you to get on the road vegan eating. Now, if you're bad at eating calories, for example, like LP, where you literally have a hard time shoveling food in your mouth, chewing it, and then swallowing it, that can be a very difficult diet to get into, vegan eating, because the calories are so much, there's so much more volume for so much less calories. So actually, as I'm saying this, that could be a pro too, because if you're cutting, maybe vegan eating might be something you switch to while you cut, and then back to meat eating while you're bulking, because it's so hard to get food in that it's just gonna be hard to overeat if you're bad at overeating while you're cutting. But my point is, it's a con when you have a hard time eating. For example, LP could never get 4,000 to 5,000 calories in by only eating vegan foods. It just wouldn't happen to him. He needs his milk, he needs, you know, his whey proteins, his mass gainers, things like that, just because it's so hard for him to chew it all. Now, for me, that's not necessarily a problem. I'm pretty good at eating. I like eating a lot, but that can be something you have to consider when you're considering going over to a vegan diet, because it's so often that people will eat under their calories without even realizing it, because it's just so hard to eat enough. When you switch to vegan eating, you're gonna have to be a lot more aware of your choices in terms of macros and micros, simply because, for example, if you're having a regular meal, you're gonna have your carbs, and then you're gonna have your meat choice, and you're gonna have your fat choice. It's very simple. You like brown rice, chicken, and I don't know, some sort of fat, right? So I cook the chicken in olive oil or something like that. It's the veggies. It's very simple. It's very simple. But when you're vegan eating, you have to think. You're like, oh, I have only been eating carbs and protein today. It's so easy to do that. It's so easy to forget your fat, because not everything is included with fat. You have to put fat into things. You know, you have to put peanut butter into your oats, or you have to put olive oil into your frying pan when you're cooking up whatever it is, vegetables. So you have to be a lot more aware of your macros and your micros, which I think can be bad for some people, but for other people like me, it's really not that difficult. It's just like another thing that you just change up a little bit. You're just like, oh, okay, all my meals are high carb. I should probably get some protein and fats in tonight. But that can be a con for some people. It can drive some people away because of the extra mental effort, I suppose. And the last con of vegan eating, and again, like I said, this isn't a full list. This is just some of the ones that I thought were relevant and came to my mind immediately when I started thinking of pros and cons. The last con is that you're going to receive resistance from the public, from society, from your friends and your family, from people you know, people you interact with, people you eat with, obviously, right? Because they're gonna be eating anything and everything they want, but you're gonna have all these restrictions now. It's almost like you're joining a religion or something, like where you can't eat like animals with hooves or something like that. It's one of those things that other people don't have to think about, and then you remind them, and they're like, oh yeah, right, we can't go to the Korean barbecue meat house because there's nothing for you to eat there. So you are gonna have to kind of explain yourself a bit, and please try not to be rude. Please try not to preach at people. Nobody wants these things. Nobody wants to be told that they're stupid. Nobody wants to be told that they're doing the wrong thing, because no one is doing the right or wrong thing. You're just doing the right or wrong thing for yourself. But you're gonna receive a lot of resistance, and you're gonna have to deal with that a lot. So prepare yourself if you do switch to a vegan diet, and prepare your friends too. Let them know what's happening before all of a sudden they have to like think about all these different things and what restaurants they want to go to with you and whatnot. So there you have it, guys. After a little more than full 3 months of vegan eating as a bodybuilder, bulking up towards his next competition, that was a really long mouthful. Those are my results. Those are my thoughts, my insight, my anecdotal advice when it comes to vegan eating. There are the common questions that I've been asked just all throughout my videos answered, and there are the pros and the cons in terms of what a bodybuilder has to say about vegan eating. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it offered some insight to you. I am planning on eating vegan. I have no reason to quit. So like I plan on continuing it for as long as I'd like. And I hope you guys can support me in this. And I hope you guys don't think that I'm ever trying to force this onto you. I'm definitely not trying to do that. I'm definitely not here to tell you that you're wrong. Like I just said, you're not wrong. You're not. I'm just doing me. You're just doing you. I want to release my advice, my insight, my ideas about what I'm doing. That way you guys can have just more knowledge. Even if you don't plan on doing it, you can understand maybe your friend who does it or whatever. I just want to put it out there for you guys and for anybody who can benefit from this knowledge and hopefully be educated on the topic a little bit more. But thank you guys for joining the video. I know it was a long blabbering talking video. I know I was talking very quickly in this video, but I wanted to make it sort of medium length, not super long. If you did enjoy this video, please give it the thumbs up. That helps rank the video and get out to other people. Like that really does help a lot. Leave a comment, let me know what you think, because that's how I know what I want to do with the future content from the channel. I know what you guys do and don't like, what you want me to do, what you don't like me to do in the videos. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already, please subscribe. Not only does that make me feel better, but it also offers you updates every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday when I put up new videos. So I hope this video offered some interesting insight. Thank you guys for joining me again. Team Beyond the Week. CT.
Lift heavy or die, MIRIN, mother.